At this time, I would like to introduce our presenter. Barry Anderson has over 40 years of experience in industrial, electrical, and control systems from the perspective of supervision, project management, design, installation, and estimation. 25 of these years include estimation experience, with 13 years in designing estimation processes and managing estimation teams, specifically for major system integrators. Sectors Barry has worked in include oil and gas, mining, food and beverage, manufacturing, power generation, defense, and pharmaceuticals. Barry is also a director and co-founder of Latzo Learning Services and IPX Check. At this time, I'll turn it over to our distinguished presenter. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you very much, Holly, and welcome to everybody. Just during the course of this, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in. If it fits in with the presentation, I will try and If it fits in with the presentation, I'll try and answer the question on the fly. If not, there will be an opening for Q&A at the end of it. Okay, so I thought I'd throw this in just to set the scene. So who really is an estimator? It's someone who does precision guesswork based on unreliable data provided by those with questionable knowledge. I'm sure we've all been in that situation before. I wish I knew who wrote this, because I obviously have experience being an estimator in the past. While it's a humorous approach, it really does have a ring of truth. So good estimation processes will minimise the guesswork, ensure the data is as reliable as possible, and take steps to minimise the lack of reliability. The following provides an overview of some of what I consider to be the essentials for estimation. So why a good process is important? If a project was a house, the estimate and the associated proposal would be the foundation for it. If you get it right, happy days. If you get it wrong, pretty obvious where we're heading. The art is to have the processes that ensure you place the appropriate amount of effort against each proposal. So where does this fit in with the CSIA best practices and benchmarks? Right at the very beginning, and it's also covered in section 3 of the best practices and benchmarks manual. As discussed previously, this process will set the scene for either a good or a poor performing project. To expand further on the opportunity management step, I've provided a generic project flow diagram, obviously detailed towards estimation. So we kick off with the capture, or business development as some people might call it. Pre-tender evaluation, where you decide whether you're going to tender or not. Tender analysis, which is setting the scene for the tender construction. The actual tender construction, that's where the rubber meets the road. Tender review and submission, approvals and approach to the client review, and then hopefully progressing into the project phases. And last but not least, continuous improvement. We will only be discussing the processes highlighted in green today. So, pre-tender evaluation. You'll note that I've included declined a tender as part of this process, as not all of the opportunities should progress through to tender. So, win more by quoting less sounds a bit counterintuitive. However, it is better to choose your battles rather than to try and fight everyone. To do this, you need to have an effective go, no-go process. Everyone will have their own view on what is the correct process. However, you need to choose a suitable one for your business and stick by it. If you believe the process is not working correctly, improve it, but please ensure you have a process in place. Some of the factors that may be applicable to your business to consider: do you have the resources and time to put out a proper proposal. If you don't have the appropriate time and resources, you'll probably do more damage to your reputation by producing a subpar proposal than by declining. Don't forget about building a solid foundation for your project. Is there a specific driver for new areas? Is the amount of effort worth the potential of winning? Do you have a relationship with the client? Do you understand their drivers for this project? How do you stack up against your competition for this project? Do you have the capacity to effectively run the project if you win it? Is the project aligned to your business? And if the odds don't stack up, why don't you concentrate your efforts on something more achievable? So declining a quote is not necessarily a bad thing. If you handle it correctly, you can actually educate the client into understanding where your strengths lie. Potentially a good opportunity for business development. Tender analysis. So this is an important step to ensure that the actual tender construction phase will proceed efficiently. Scoping. Not having a clear understanding of the scope before proceeding with the takeoff can cause gaps and overlaps and generally waste effort. Just a note, a takeoff is a detailed list of scope items with allowances allocated to each item to build up the cost. Approach. So representatives from project management, engineering, business development, finance and management should be involved in coming up with the approach. So the approach needs to be based on client and competition knowledge. Is it more important to provide a comprehensive bid with the price being a secondary consideration? Or is it more important to provide a very competitive price with lots of clarifications? Or is there another way of providing the client's requirements in a better manner? So I found that with risk, it's a good practice to separate risks and opportunities into technical, logistical and commercial areas. For instance, a technical risk might be that the software is to be used is only a beta version, while an opportunity may be that you have specific sequences already written for that part of the project. A logistical risk may be that you've not worked in this location before. An opportunity may be that you're the only one to have an office in this location. The commercial risk may be that liquidated damages apply. An opportunity may be that there's favourable payment terms. So ensure that you're adding in costs for risks, but you're also removing appropriate costs for opportunities as well. Otherwise, you may price yourself out of contention. So please note that the risk and opportunity list should be a live document throughout the complete project life cycle. So the treatment of the risk should also be recorded. For instance, have you allowed extra money? Has there been a clarification written? Or is there a management approach? Tender construction. So if the previous processes have been followed correctly, the estimator should now have a clear understanding of how to proceed, who to request the input from, and when to request the input. So there are a large number of types and subtypes of estimation. However, these are the main types that you're likely to encounter. So bottom-up is your normal type of detailed estimate. I always suggest that you apply cross-checking methods. For this one, if you use science first, or math, and follow up with experience. For example, with the math, standard time for a task might be an hour. 10 repetitions of this task would equal 10 hours. Using the experience to cross-check, you might say that you're repeating this task one after the other. If so, is there only one setup time? Could we therefore reduce it from 10 hours down to 9 hours? Top-down, usually used for quick budgets. Use high-level figures from previous projects and do the opposite and check it with math. Yeah. For instance, would it really take 10 people 6 months to complete a project of this size? A relative style estimate is normally used for the agile type of projects. It doesn't seek to have definitive hours attached, but seeks to define that this task might be twice as large as that task, and so on. So with the tender construction, I strongly suggest that unit rates are used in your process. They provide consistency, understanding, and a platform for continuous improvement. However, there is a but. Everyone needs to understand what is in and out of the rate. Just using the rate without considering repeat work, location, for example, working remotely, and other factors may mean either a high or a low number. And please note, the estimator still needs to be skilled and be able to visualise what a project will look like. During the course of the construction of the tender, you need to be keeping live notes, lists, and diagrams or sketches. So do not try and remember all of these clarifications at the end of the takeoff, because some will be forgotten. Just keep a pad next to you and continue to keep it as a live document. As discussed in the tender analysis, you should know if you're going for minimum price or maximum conformance. So sections of the tender. There's an old adage that there are things that you know what you know what you don't know, and don't know what you don't know. These relate well to the sections of a takeoff. So know what you know equals the base takeoff. Know what you don't know equals your risk and opportunity allowances. And don't know what you don't know equals your contingency allowances. So items other than base costs that may need to be considered. Management, general and preliminary allowances. These could be items like project management, site management, project infrastructure, etc. Just a note, if costs are directly attributable to direct costs, try and keep them at the direct cost level. Risk and opportunity allowances. So you're adding costs or savings as applicable into the overheads. You need to understand how they should be spread across the project sections as well. Contingency, add in as applicable. Once again, understand how they should be spread across the project sections. Corporate and company overheads. This covers the amount of money necessary to cover the indirect administration and management costs of running a company, normally expressed as a percentage of turnover. Note, try to keep as much of the cost of running the business in the hourly rate, etc., as this tends to balance the cost breakdown better. Last but not least, profit. Expected remaining money at the end of the project. Normally a minimum percentage expectation. So with your Takeoff systems and tools, very important that we focus on these 5 points. They need to be robust. It's expensive if you lose a large amount of effort or end up with an incorrect number due to a formula being broken. They need to be flexible. Most clients want price breakdown, and they usually don't align with the way you want to take it off. The system that allows both is ideal. Libraries. A substantial amount of time can be saved if a good updatable library of costs and rate is integrated. Reporting. A good ability to allow for multiple ways of viewing the information for checking and approvals is ideal. Updates. The ability to update old takeoffs with new prices and rates is also ideal. As opposed to an Excel spreadsheet, a good quality database system covers all of the above, and any licensing fees will more than cover the costs of inefficiencies and miscalculations. As an example, I have previously integrated a product called Expert Estimation by Pronamics and thoroughly recommend it for robustness and capability. Please let me know if you'd like more information on this product. So with proposal documents, I find it's very good practice to run with templates. It's important that clients understand the DNA of your company. So consistency of documentation helps with this understanding. So I've found that exclusions can create a negative tone with clients, so try and minimise the number of actual exclusions you have. I like to break them down into these sorts of areas. So inclusions, use this to emphasise your allowances and quality of the bid. Clarifications, use this to add detail as to how the project will be performed. Assumptions, use this to add clarity as to how you perceive the client's requirements. Options, this may be a way to either upsell additional work or provide alternative delivery methods. And then finally, exclusions. So try and keep any messages as such to the client in the other sections. Only use this section to show items that are stated in the client requirements that you will definitely not be providing. I've also found ISVP to be a very good approach. It stands for issue, solution, benefit, proof. So the issue, what really matters to the customer? The solution, how will you address those issues? The benefit, what benefit will the customer receive from your approach? And proof, what is the evidence that will work? Previous projects, etc. So once you've completed the draft proposal, the tender review meeting needs to be organised. So just a note, the personnel required to cover the various sections may be one or multiple people. just put a bit of an idea in there as to the type of person that might be involved in cash flow, for instance, project approach, etc. So ideally, the personnel that were involved in the original tender analysis will also be involved in this process. This process can be as short or as long as required for everybody to reach a consensus. So the client review is linked with the lost tender review and continuous improvement. So with the submission to client, with the delivery, while some tenders are restrictive on delivery, if at all possible, delivery in person is preferred. Once again, if possible, a page turn of your proposal with the client is a brilliant way to make sure they understand exactly what you're trying to propose to them. Regardless of how you've submitted to the client, always follow up with the client and ask for feedback, regardless of win or loss. This will help amazingly with your continuous improvement. Service to the client. I've found in the past that if they've not yet placed an order, but has informed you that they are looking at an alternative vendor, an offer to review an unpriced copy of the other vendors so that you can provide advice as to whether they've covered the scope will create great dividends for you. Lost tender review. A large amount of effort is required to produce a quality proposal. Don't waste this information that has been gained. Conduct a lessons learned exercise. However, ensure that you have a reasonable system to allow for retrieval of this information. On the flip side, one tender. Reviews should always be conducted as to why you've won the tender as well. At the end of the project, conduct a review to establish quoted against actual expenditure and feed this back into your process. Just like any other part of your business, continuous improvement processes should be applied to estimation. Significant gains can be made if you can improve the amount of effort required to produce a quality proposal and fine-tune the allowances. So with the lost tender, losing the tender doesn't always mean that your proposal was wrong. Other people can make mistakes. Do a postmortem to be clear what the reason was. Someone else bought the project, perhaps. Someone else had a better solution. You might have made a genuine mistake. Maybe your rates need reviewing. These are just a few of the questions that should be asked. So measure your success. Use ratios, quoted versus non-quoted, win-loss, etc., and potentially provide incentives. So quoted versus quoted, non-quoted, this may help in understanding if your salespeople are focusing on the correct projects. Win-loss, you may want to look at number, percentage or dollars to understand the health of your estimation process. So incentives. Should you incentivise for goal achievements? Will they work for your company? Just a little warning, ensure your goals are well thought through, as poor goals can create poor attitudes. So I've had a couple of questions just pop through. So one from Jason Brown. What is your opinion on having the personnel that is going to execute the project be involved in the development of the estimate? I reckon that's crucial, Jason, for a good outcome. It stops the finger-pointing exercise if the project isn't running particularly well. Specifically, your project management team should have good involvement so that they can help guide the direction of how you're going to achieve the project, and so that they're fully aware of what your intention was with allowances or exclusions. I notice there's a second part to your question. We find that sometimes they might not come up with the lowest price. That's why it's good to have a team approach. Everybody's going to naturally want to give themselves as much time as possible to achieve a particular task within a project. However, if they get too anxious about it, you're not going to win the project, so they're going to have all the time in the world to do it. So yes, you still need to have good, solid estimation practices and processes, and question if there's additional risk money going in, why it's there. And definitely look at opportunities as well. There's no point just adding in money for risk without looking at good opportunities and taking money back out for the opportunities as well. Otherwise, you're going to price yourself out of the project. Thank you, Jason. That was good questions, mate. So, well, that's it from me. Just a couple of little points. Our sister company, Latza Learning Services, has a 2-day face-to-face course which covers all of this webinar in more detail, plus additional topics in a workshop environment. Please visit www.latza.com.au if you'd like further information. We're doing quite well for time, so look, thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. I'll actually be co-presenting the Best Practices Workshop with Tom Sauter at the annual conference in Asheville. So I look forward to seeing you there. And please, if you've got any questions, throw them through. So I've got one here from Eric. Do you have a go, no-go analysis sheet you would be willing to share? Yes, I could throw one up. I think I could give you something that would give you some pointers in the way to proceed. However, it's very important that your go, no-go suits your business. So, yes, as a starting point, more than happy to share that, Eric. I'll have a chat to Holly as to how we can do that afterwards. So another question from Bob. So the platform, Bob, is called Expert Estimation from a company called Pronamics. That's Pronamics. So once again, if you like, I can pass through some details to Holly. But if you just Google Pronamics, you'll find that software. I've found it to be extremely flexible. I've tried all sorts of different things to break it in the past. And I haven't been able to break it yet. So that's why I'm happy to recommend it. So any other questions? Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. I might throw back to you, I think, Holly, then.
All right, thank you very much. If you did have a question you didn't get a chance to type in, please feel free to email me, and I'll work with Barry to get your questions answered. So thank you very much. On behalf of CSIA, I want to thank Barry for this informative discussion, and I also want to thank all of you for attending. We hope you found this informational. When you close out of this webinar, a link will pop up to a brief evaluation. We would appreciate it if you would take a moment to share your feedback with us. We'd also like to remind you that a recording of this webinar will be available for viewing within 30 days of this event. Visit the CSIA website to view the recording or a past webinar you might have missed. This concludes our program for today. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.